Fax, sometimes called telecopying or telefax, is the telephonic transmission of scanned printed material, normally to a telephone number connected to a printer or other output device. The original document is scanned with a fax machine, which processes the contents as a single fixed graphic image, converting it into a bitmap, and then transmitting it through the telephone system in the form of audio frequency tones. The receiving fax machine interprets the tones and reconstructs the image, printing a paper copy. Early systems used direct conversions of image darkness to audio tone in a continuous or analog manner. Since the 1980s, most machines modulate the transmitted audio frequencies using a digital representation of the page, which is compressed to quickly transmit areas, which are all white or all black. History. Wire transmission. Scottish inventor Alexander Bain worked on chemical-mechanical fax-type devices and in 1846 was able to reproduce graphic signs in laboratory experiments. He received patent 9745 on May 27, 1843 for his electric printing telegraph. Frederick Bakewell made several improvements on Bain's design and demonstrated a telefax machine. The pantelegraph was invented by the Italian physicist Giovanni Caselli. He introduced the first commercial telefax service between Paris and Lyon in 1865, some 11 years before the invention of the telephone. In 1881, English inventor Shelford Bidwell constructed the scanning phototelegraph that was the first telefax machine to scan any two-dimensional original, not requiring manual plotting or drawing. Around 1900, German physicist Arthur Korn invented the Bild telegraph, widespread in continental Europe especially, since a widely noticed transmission of a wanted person photograph from Paris to London in 1908, used until the wider distribution of the radio fax. Its main competitors were the Berliner Graphie by Edouard Belin first, then since the 1930s the Hellschreiber, invented in 1929 by German inventor Rudolf Hell, a pioneer in mechanical image scanning and transmission. The 1888 invention of the telautograph by Elisha Gray marked a further development in fax technology, allowing users to send signatures over long distances, thus allowing the verification of identification or ownership over long distances. On May 19, 1924, scientists of the AT&T Corporation, by a new process of transmitting pictures by electricity, sent 15 photographs by telephone from Cleveland to New York City. Such photos suitable for newspaper reproduction. Previously, photographs had been sent over the radio using this process. The Western Union desk fax machine, announced in 1948, was a compact machine that fit comfortably on a desktop, using special spark printer paper. Wireless transmission. As a designer for the Radio Corporation of America, in 1924, Richard H. Ranger invented the wireless photoradiogram, or transoceanic radio facsimile, the forerunner of today's fax machines. A photograph of President Calvin Coolidge sent from New York to London on November 29, 1924 became the first photo picture reproduced by transoceanic radio facsimile. Commercial use of Ranger's product began 2 years later. Also in 1924, Herbert E. Ives of AT&T Corporation transmitted and reconstructed the first color facsimile, using color separations. Around 1952 or so, Finch facsimile, a highly developed machine, was described in detail in a book. It was never manufactured in quantity. By the late 1940s, radio fax receivers were sufficiently miniaturized to be fitted beneath the dashboard of Western Union's telecar telegram delivery vehicles. In the 1960s, the United States Army transmitted the first photograph via satellite facsimile to Puerto Rico from the Deal test site using the Courier satellite. Radio fax is still in limited use today for transmitting weather charts and information to ships at sea. Telephone transmission. In 1964, Xerox Corporation introduced what many consider to be the first commercialized version of the modern fax machine, under the name or long-distance xerography. This model was superseded 2 years later with a unit that would truly set the standard for fax machines for years to come. Up until this point, facsimile machines were very expensive and hard to operate. In 1966, Xerox released the Magnafax telecopier, a smaller, 46-pound facsimile machine. This unit was far easier to operate and could be connected to any standard telephone line. This machine was capable of transmitting a letter-sized document in about 6 minutes. The first sub-minute digital fax machine was developed by Dacom, which built on digital data compression technology originally developed at Lockheed for satellite communication. By the late 1970s, many companies around the world entered the fax market. Very shortly after, a new wave of more compact, faster and efficient fax machines would hit the market. Xerox continued to refine the fax machine for years after their groundbreaking first machine. In later years it would be combined with copier equipment to create the hybrid machines we have today that copy, scan and fax. Some of the lesser-known capabilities of the Xerox fax technologies included their Ethernet-enabled fax services on their 8,000 workstations in the early 1980s. Prior to the introduction of the ubiquitous fax machine, one of the first being the Exxon QWIP in the mid-1970s, facsimile machines worked by optical scanning of a document or drawing spinning on a drum. The reflected light, varying in intensity according to the light and dark areas of the document, was focused on a photocell so that the current in a circuit varied with the amount of light. This current was used to control a tone generator, the current determining the frequency of the tone produced. This audio tone was then transmitted using an acoustic coupler attached to the microphone of a common telephone handset. At the receiving end, a handset speaker was attached to an acoustic coupler, and a demodulator converted the varying tone into a variable current that controlled the mechanical movement of a pen or pencil to reproduce the image on a blank sheet of paper on an identical drum rotating at the same rate. Computer facsimile interface. In 1985, Dr. Hank Magnuski, founder of Gamma Link, produced the first computer fax board, called GammaFax. Fax in the 21st century. Although businesses usually maintain some kind of fax capability, the technology has faced increasing competition from internet-based alternatives. In some countries, because electronic signatures on contracts are not yet recognized by law, while faxed contracts with copies of signatures are. Fax machines enjoy continuing support in business. In Japan, faxes are still used extensively for cultural and graphemic reasons and are available for sending to both domestic and international recipients from over 81% of all convenience stores nationwide. Convenience store fax machines commonly print the slightly resized content of the sent fax in the electronic confirmation slip, in A4 paper size. In many corporate environments, freestanding fax machines have been replaced by fax servers and other computerized systems capable of receiving and storing incoming faxes electronically, and then routing them to users on paper or via an email. Such systems have the advantage of reducing costs by eliminating unnecessary printouts and reducing the number of inbound analog phone lines needed by an office. The once ubiquitous fax machine has also begun to disappear from the small office and home office environments. Remotely hosted fax services are widely available from VoIP and email providers, allowing users to send and receive faxes using their existing email accounts without the need for any hardware or dedicated fax lines. Personal computers have also long been able to handle incoming and outgoing faxes using analog modems or ISDN, eliminating the need for a standalone fax machine. These solutions are often ideally suited for users who only very occasionally need to use fax services. There are 17 million fax machines in the U.S., one every 4.47 square miles.